Basement level vibes with another one, straight up blackness aye. Who tell the truth? Mark Benskop, defend the ghetto youth. Mark Benskop, radio station is the fruit. Mark Benskop, straight up from the root. Mark Benskop, who tell the truth? Mark Benskop, defend the ghetto youth. Mark Benskop, radio station is the fruit. Mark Benskop, straight up from the root. Mark Benskop, I do it for the love, him not do it for no money. Straight up, him attack, educating everybody. Big up my friends and big up my family. Turn on the radio, catch the vibes, it's integrity. Straight up, Benskop stands for unity. One people, one nation, one destiny. Free up the truth in the air, even the blind can see. The deaf can hear, the dumb can talk, the cripple can walk. Boom. Who tell the truth? Mark Benskop, defend the ghetto youth. Mark Benskop, radio station is the fruit. Mark Benskop, straight up from the root. Mark Benskop, who tell the truth? Mark Benskop, defend the ghetto youth. Mark Benskop, radio station is the fruit. Mark Benskop, straight up from the root. Mark Benskop, we have to gather wrong, grab a seat and sit down, pay attention. Education, liberation, we have to stand strong. Benskop upon the radio, lively up the program. Everybody call somebody and let them turn and tune and on the radio and catch the boom song. We boom it up already, we have to boom it up again. Expose and reveal him. Who tell the truth? Mark Benskop, defend the ghetto youth. Mark Benskop, radio station is the fruit. Mark Benskop, straight up from the root. Mark Benskop, who tell the truth? Mark Benskop, defend the ghetto youth. Mark Benskop, radio station is the fruit. Mark Benskop, straight up from the root. Mark Benskop, I do it for the love, him not do it for no money. Straight up, him attack, educating everybody. Big up my friends and big up my family. Turn on the radio, catch the vibes, it's integrity. Straight up, Benskop stands for unity. One people, one nation, one destiny. Free up the truth in the air, even the blind can see. The deaf can hear, the dumb can talk, the cripple can walk. Boom. Who tell the truth? Mark Benskop, defend the ghetto youth. Mark Benskop, radio station is the fruit. Mark Benskop, straight up from the root. Mark Benskop, who tell the truth? Mark Benskop, defend the ghetto youth. Mark Benskop, radio station is the fruit. Mark Benskop, straight up from the root. Mark Benskop.
This is attorney Shellen Washington, owner and founder of the Washington Law Firm, located at 455 Utica Avenue in Brooklyn, New York. We're specialized in medical malpractice, personal injuries, matrimonial law, and landlord and tenant. If you're in need of legal representation, please give us a call today. The number to call is 718-877-3100. Consultation is free at no cost to you, so call us today to see if we can be of any assistance to your legal needs. Again, the phone number to call us is 718-877-3100.
Mr. Mark, I believe every word of what Mr. Shu is saying. I am also afraid of Mr. Shu. Mr. Shu, if you are listening, I don't want anybody to harm you. This is a serious thing. Corruption is big. And we Chinese have to stop that. Been bullied by Jack Dale and other government officials to pay bribe. It's big all over Guyana. A Chinese to pay by bribe. Mr. Shu, I hope you to stay strong. Do not. We respect and salute you for your bravery, for coming up and speak against corruption in Guyana. Thank you, Mr. Shu. We appreciate you, Mr. Mark. 马克，我相信每一句苏先生说的话。我现在很担心苏先生。苏先生，如果你在听我说话，我不想任何人威胁你。圭亚那政府腐败很严重，这个是很严重的事情。我们中国人必须停止被那些政府用武力行贿。苏先生，我希望你能继续你的发表，也希望你在新的一年万事如意。
Right across Ghana, when the ministers of Granger or Nagamutu come here after the 21st of March, you say to them, walk behind them, chase them out, they're going to be illegal. Say to them, you're illegal. Free up the country, you're undemocratic. They're going to face a different situation right across the country.
These people have no conscience. No conscience they don't have. None.
Guyana really nice. Guyana. It's a nice place.
Yes, my name is Jacinti Caldata Francis Vietnam, and since 1965 I become a voter, and I always place my ex next to the cup, and what they are doing today, I can't take it. So I have no more vote to give to PPP anymore. I'm not going to vote anymore no more. If they have to lose by one vote, they're losing it by data. I have none.
Are you confident that you're going to deliver credible and fair elections?
Of course. Only one way I know.
Hello, this is attorney Shellen Washington, owner and founder of the Washington Law Firm located at 455 Utica Avenue in Brooklyn, New York. We're specialized in medical malpractice, personal injuries, matrimonial law, and landlord and tenant. If you're in need of legal representation, please give us a call today. The number to call is 718-877-3100. Consultation is free at no cost to you. So call us today to see if we can be of any assistance to your legal needs. Again, the phone number to call us is 718-877-3100.
All right, let's get ready to rumble. It's 9 minutes after 9 o'clock. My name is Mark Benchop. It's the 19th day of July. It's almost the end of the year, right? We can almost just put it that way. 2023 is going by so quickly. All right, on the screen, I don't want you guys to be afraid of anything. It's not a ghost story. This is not Nightmare on Elm Street. This is not Freddy Krueger or other scary movies. This is not a scary novel either. It's just some photographs of individuals who are part of an installed regime, a regime that has rigged its way into office and denied the people true government as of 2020. And so they were installed on August 1st, 2023, or 2020, sorry. And then they just selected these individuals on the screen as installed minister or ministers. The one on the top right, of course, no stranger to you guys, is Priya Manichand. She is a frequent listener to Straight Up on 107.1 FM. She probably has her popcorn and sitting next to whoever it is that she's sitting next to, eating her popcorn and sipping on whatever it is that she sips on. Next to her is Kroll. Kroll happens to be the senior minister of housing, the senior installed minister of housing. And then at the bottom left is the minister of social services, Prasad. And then in the middle is the guy who persecuted me in the high court, along, of course, he was one of those special prosecutor. His name is Sanjeev Dattadin. Sanjeev Dattadin, the guy with the big voice, and not really, nothing much out of that. Sanjeev Dattadin is a member of parliament too. Next to Sanjeev is a guy whose visa was actually revoked. His name, U.S. visa, that is, in 2017. That's the guy there, Siraj, right? That's the guy, and that's the guy that we're talking about that could possibly replace Nigel Dharamlal, who is out. He is in battle. He's the disgraced minister, installed minister of local government. He's out as a member of parliament. And that guy, Siraj, is tipped to replace him. We're told that Irfan Ali wants Siraj to replace him, but Jack Deere doesn't get along with Siraj, and so there's right now some big fighting that's going on as to who should be the replacement. I know a couple nights back that I did say that Siraj is the guy. I am still maintaining because I bet $13 on that. However, I just want to lay the cards out on the table to let you guys know that Jack Deere has been objecting to Siraj. They have serious issues right now in the PPPC because Jack Deere doesn't want Siraj. Jack Deere is saying that Siraj doesn't like him. And of course, I don't know why, but and Siraj talks his name all over the place. And so Jack Deere knows that he cannot control Siraj, and so he doesn't want Siraj there. I'll be surprised if Siraj is there, but here's my bet that there will be a mini, not a mini as in Jack Deere style of mini, but there will be a mini turning around of the cabinet, a mini turning around of the cabinet. Don't be surprised at that. Don't be surprised if Vidya, or that's her name, yeah. Don't be surprised if she is removed as the Minister of Social Services. Don't be surprised at that. And now here is where we just kind of like get the three cards and we kind of like throwing the three cards around. The local government ministry is very important. It is the ministry that they got millions of dollars, that whoever the minister is walks around with a couple millions of dollars to just dish out and dash out in the different regions and so forth. And Jack Deere would want someone that he can control. They're not just going to grab anyone and just put them there. They want somebody that they can control. Now, Siraj he's not going to be able to control Siraj. And so Jack Deere is he's not too comfortable with Siraj there at all. And hence my reason now for saying that they may very well be a mini cabinet reshuffle. This guy in the red shirt up there, Kroll may move over as the local government minister, senior local government minister, because he has dealt with Amerindian affairs and so forth. And that's what they're concerned about, really. And the guy that really could tip them would be Kroll. So they may want to move Kroll from Ministry of Housing and replace him with someone. The question is, who is that someone? Would it be Sanjeev Dattadin? Or are they going to remove the guy who is the Natural Resources Minister and replace him with Sanjeev Dattadin? Anyways, without wasting much time on these guys on the screen, look out for a mini cabinet reshuffle, and possibly if Jack Deere doesn't get his way with Siraj, then there might be a technocrat coming in at some point in time. You can see a technocrat. But as of now, Dharamlal has been replaced in Parliament. So there's no problem for them there in Parliament, as Jack Deere would say. There is no problem there in Parliament with them at all, because they have their full contingent of MPs. They have everybody there. It's just that key ministry that they have to think about who will replace. So watch out for the news very soon. You could be hearing something within the next 24 hours. And just that's all we wish to say about these folks who have rigged their way into office. Watch out for that mini cabinet reshuffle, and so forth. So, what else is it that we can discuss? Good evening, all of you, and welcome to Straight Up. My name is Mark Benchap. We are going to go. Look, there are some folks who are talking, some guys who do not understand. They do not read. They do not understand politics. They just don't. They don't understand. It's all about a hustle for these guys. All about a hustle, and so I call them flatfoot hustlers. And speaking of that, our operator, can you please get in touch with Miss Shellon Washington and just see whether she's available for tonight? We can have her on for a few minutes. Attorney at law, Shellon Washington. All right, so we'll just probably wait another minute or so. I know she did say that she was caught up, always busy, probably getting all of the cases there in New York. She's out there in New York, and good evening to all the folks there in New York. Good evening to all of you. So we'll be joined by Miss Washington. We will be joined by Miss Washington. And good evening. I'm reading some of your comments, and let me just let you guys know that this is a program that we're not going to be distracted by no one, absolutely no one. We are going to keep, as we always do, keep our comment section very, very clean. We're not going to get into comments with LOLO and who this and who. We're not going to get into that. This is not the kind of show for that. This is not the comment section for that. Occasionally, we may just put a little smile in some things, yes. And this is not all a serious show, a serious show. And so we're hoping we will. Okay, I'm told that Miss Washington is with us. Hopefully later on we'll be joined by Mr. Caesar. And these are two respectable commentators that are with us and hopefully will be with us for a long time. And if you don't see anybody with us, it simply means that they're no longer with us. That's all I wish to say on that. And let's move on. What else we can talk about? Oh, our operator is saying Miss Washington is with us. Oh, all right. Let's bring her on. Miss Washington, good evening, and how are you doing?
Hi, good evening, Mark. I am well, and good evening to all the listeners out there tonight.
All right, we're so happy to have you on here with us as always. Let's start right off the bat with elections. And I'm not sure if you saw this news because we are seeing here Donald Trump says he is a target of special counsel's criminal probe into 2020 election aftermath. In other words, he did, according to them, the allegations is that he did something that's quite questionable, something that is quite questionable in the elections. And this is interesting because while I read, in the process of reading that headline, I was smiling and I'm like, karma, right? Karma just kept coming to my mind. Karma. The interference and the obvious interference of the Guyana elections and all these frivolous accusations that the coalition rigged the elections. The allegations, frivolous allegations, because there has been no evidence to substantiate that at all. But here is Trump. But before we get to you, Miss Washington, I want our listeners to see what went on and what Mike Pompeo, the then Secretary of State, said about the elections and after Joe Biden won the 2020 presidential elections.
Hi. Is the State Department currently preparing to engage with the Biden transition team? And if not, at what point does a delay hamper a smooth transition or pose a risk to national security?
there will be a smooth transition to a second Trump administration. Right? We're ready. The world is watching what's taking place here. We're going to count all the votes. When the process is complete, there'll be electors selected. There's a process. The Constitution lays it out pretty clearly. The world should have every confidence that the transition necessary to make sure that the State Department is functional today, successful today, and successful with the president who's in office on January 20th, a minute afternoon, will also be successful. I went through a transition on the front, and I've been on the other side of this. I'm very confident that we will do all the things that are necessary to make sure that the government, the United States government, will continue to perform its national security function as we go forward.
So you believe there's widespread voter fraud, that the reports that we're getting from Pennsylvania, from Michigan, showing vote totals in massive leads or significant leads with 99% reporting are going to be overturned, and that the United States failed to conduct a fraudulent free election?
Rich, I'm the Secretary of State. I'm getting calls from all across the world. These people are watching our election. They understand that we have a legal process. They understand that this takes time. Right? It took us 37 plus days in an election back in 2000. We conducted a successful transition then. I'm very confident that we will count, and we must count every legal vote. We must make sure that any vote that wasn't lawful ought not be counted. That dilutes your vote if it's done improperly. Got to get that right. When we get it right, we'll get it right. We're in good shape.
Should foreign leaders not be calling
We're in good shape.
President-elect Biden?
Who's next?
Thank you, Ms. Washington. When all of the votes are counted, when we get it right, we'll get all of the votes. This is not what they wanted for Guyana, right? But the interesting thing here, though, apart from the headline here that says Donald Trump, of course, criminal probe into the 2020 election aftermath, and then having listened to what Pompeo said there, while Secretary of State, U.S. Secretary of State, is saying that there will be a second Trump swearing in after Biden won the elections. You're the lawyer here. Talk about how dangerous that is, Ms. Washington.
I mean, this is something that, the United States is one of the most recognized, largest economy in the world. And when there's an election, the citizens, everyone expect things to go smoothly and to be done in accordance with the law. And if Mr. Pompeo is going to come out after Biden won the election and make a statement of that nature about the potential swearing in of an outgoing president, I think that's very dangerous, and it sends a really dangerous message to the public. And I think comments like those is exactly what sparked the January 6th riot in the United States. Because when you have people in leadership making certain comments, it's a very, very dangerous thing. And, I'm not even surprised at all that now there's a special counsel criminal probe into the aftermath of the 2020 elections. When we look at all the things that transpired and those things that led up to the January 6th riot, I'm not surprised at all, but I really think it's very dangerous. When you're in leadership, you have to be very cautious with your choice of words. You have to be careful with what you say. And I think more so is that versus what a journalist would say, or, a regular everyday citizen would say. And, that's the reverse of what we see in Guyana. Rather than those in political office are held accountable for their words, for anything that they speak, the government tried to hold the population accountable for anything they say. And I think they're putting this as the cart before the horse, because in effect, the people who need to be very careful with their choice of words is those people in power, because they can influence those people who follow them either negatively or in a positive way by their choice of words.
All right, Ms. Washington here with us, attorney at law. Seem to be getting under the skins of those puppets back home, those who are sitting there in their offices after having rigged elections. Suddenly, some of them got a little money and they feel they can talk about, talk is cheap. We're not too bothered about them. But Does it bother you that these very people, the Trumps and the Mike Pompeos and so forth, were so, you know, visible when it came to Guyana elections, talking about democracy and the right to vote and count all of the votes, and when the votes are counted, this is something that they have denied the Guyanese people. How do you feel about that, Miss Washington?
I think it's a certain level of hypocrisy. It's a double standard that people in power or in position in the United States would try to thwart the course of justice and interfere with the elections being properly held and the person who would have won being placed into office. And they're wanting the opposite for the United States. I think the exact thing that they would fight for this country that we live in, that's the same thing that they should recommend or state in any statement that they're going to make to the people of Guyana. You cannot want elections to be fair and for votes to be counted properly in the United States, but in Guyana, you're pushing for the outgoing president, which he shouldn't have been, to leave office prior to the votes being properly counted and it's being properly verified that there was no fraud. Because we're aware that there was widespread fraud during our elections in Guyana, and it's such hypocrisy that Mike Pompeo would come and say that they're waiting for the votes to be counted properly before the President Trump could vacate office, versus in Guyana when David Granger should have been allowed to stay there. America should have supported David Granger until the votes were properly counted and until it was properly determined that there was no fraud, absolutely no fraud. And I think on many levels, with what was going on in the United States around the same time, the votes were properly counted here. They were challenged in court, but still, the Republicans were pushing that they want the election to be fair, even though the American public knew that the elections was fair and the votes were properly counted. Whereas in Guyana, the votes were not properly counted. We know that elections in Guyana was not fair. And I think it was unfair to Guyana for the previous administration under Donald Trump to have said the things that they said regarding the election. They showed absolutely no support for the APNU coalition. But when something similar happened in the US, not really similar, but we know Donald Trump was trying to challenge the election, they were speaking out against that. Why didn't they say the same thing about Guyana, that the PPP should have waited until the votes were properly counted, waited until it was properly challenged, and it was the people of Guyana had ensured that the elections was indeed fair and transparent, and that President David Granger was rightfully or should have rightfully left office. But they didn't wait for any such thing. They forced for David Granger to step out of office when we know he should really have been there for a second term.
Should have been there for a second term. 29 minutes after 9 o'clock, we have Mr. Wayne Caesar with us here. And we just want to welcome you, Mr. Caesar. Good evening to you, sir.
Good evening, Mark. Good evening, Shalon. And a pleasant good evening to all our freedom fighters out there.
All of them, every one of them that's watching this program and keeping it clean, keeping the program clean in the comment section, please. We keep it clean, mind you. So, Miss Washington, before we get to Mr. Caesar, and the fact that, let me just remind our listeners as well that there were two or a couple declarations, and the final declaration was made by the CEO, Mr. Lowenfield, Keith Lowenfield, who actually made the declaration, and a proper declaration after all the valid votes were counted. The declaration showed that the APNU AFC won the March 2020 general and regional elections. But what the PPP fought for, along with some of those corrupt guys who helped to rig them, foreign guys who helped to rig the elections, is they wanted all of the votes to mixed up and counted, including the spoiled votes. And then after all of the votes are counted, including the spoiled votes, whoever wins, win. And whoever is the loser should have to take it to the court via a petition. But what Mike Pompeo was arguing for America was different. He said after all of the valid votes were counted, In Guyana, they didn't want that at all. I don't know how that makes you feel as an attorney that in Guyana, they are allowed for all of the invalid votes to be counted. And then the winner, supposed winners in office on the questionable circumstances. How does that make you feel?
It enrages me, to be honest, but I do kind of like understand why some of the countries, the developed countries who tries to meddle in elections in certain developing countries do things the way they do. I think for some reason or the other, whoever would suit the agenda of the administration who is in power in the United States, that's the government or the political party that they would support. Whoever would support their agenda. So whatever it is that they want to accomplish by meddling in Guyana's affairs, and the person or the party who sides with their policies and said, listen, we're going to support you, whatever you want to come to Guyana and do, that's who they support. And the people of Guyana has to wake up, because if Guyana never had oil, I don't think America would care about Guyana. But the fact that there's oil there, America certainly cares. They care about the election. They care about the person who's sitting in office. But because, as you know, instability in any country, political instability in any country, causes a disruption in the business of most foreign countries. So what they try to do, and this is something the people of Guyana need to understand, is to support the political party that they believe, if that party is in power, they would support whatever policies that they, or political agenda or economic agenda that they might have as it relates to that country. That's who they will support. And I think it's atrocious, because when they meddle in that way, they interfere with the people of Guyana's rights to put whoever they want to put in office. Because this is really not about America, it's not about Canada, it's not about England, it's not about any of those countries, but it's about the people of Guyana. And you see, whenever there's a leader, any leader who steps foot into politics and their agenda doesn't align with that of some of those countries, then they're not supportive of those political leaders. You know, we see the same thing in Haiti. We see this in a lot of other countries. If that political leader does not align with the agenda of those developed countries, they would like those people to step out of office. And that is not right, because what really matters is what the people of Guyana wants, the will of the people. Every other country, the will of the people is what prevails. In the United States, the will of the people prevail. In England, in Canada, but in Guyana, for some reason,
the will of the people, Miss Washington, in Guyana didn't matter in the 2020 elections.
It doesn't.
Billions of dollars of oil. It's the oil that matters, and whoever can get their hands on it. And they thought that they could get Exxon, and their friends thought that they could get a better deal from the corrupt PPP, Jack Dave and these guys, than they would have gotten. And they were of the impression that Granger was going to tighten the screws on them in the second term. But we can talk about that. Yeah, sorry. Finish up your point, please, and we'll get to Mr.
Well, since I was interrupted, Mark,
not Mr. Washington, sorry, Mr. Caesar. Go ahead, Miss Washington.
But in any event, Mark, I think what is more important and what the Guyanese people need to continue to recognize, that what their wishes and their desires are is more important for their country than what the Western world wants for Guyana.
Well said, Miss Washington, attorney at law with us. Let's go straight to Mr. Caesar. As Mr. Caesar joined us, we were talking about this latest news that there could be a possible federal probe and possible indictment of Donald Trump for interference or whatever it is in the 2020 election aftermath. We were also talking about how Mr. Pompeo, then U.S. Secretary of State, spoke about there will be a second Trump swearing in even after losing the elections, even after Trump had lost the elections. Quickly, your take on this latest development, sir.
Yeah, Mark, listen, I feel like if, there is enough there for charges to be levied against this guy, I don't think, he is mentally capable to be sitting in the White House and, controlling our nuclear codes. You know, we need somebody who is mentally stable and who is able to execute, you know, the duties of being president of the United States. You're talking about the most powerful nation in the world here. And when you look at this guy and you look at his track record, you know, listen, it'll be hard not to call Donald Trump himself a criminal. But the ordinary, everyday criminal, you know, is held to, you know, a higher standard, it appears, than this guy. Because I can't understand how every time, you know, he finds a way to squeak his way out of trouble. I think he's trapped now. I think there's so many, you know, cases against him that, you know, it's going to finally fall through, and, you know, his bid for the White House is going to just finally just cave in. And that needs to happen, Mark, because, you know, picture the rhetoric that would be preached across America and even so across the world with somebody like Donald Trump in office again. Listen, he wants to get back in office so he could, you know, met out revenge against people who he think, you know, may have crossed him the wrong way. And that's not right. Now, where does serving the American people fit into all of this? You know, we want people in place that is there to serve the American people. And I think Joe Biden is doing a pretty solid job. And the way the economy has been responding of late, I would say he's doing an exceptional job as a public accountant. I would say that. So, you know, Trump need to take a back seat and kind of relax himself, because he has a lot of court appearances. So I think he should more focus on that, you know, rather than, you know, trying to, you know, bid again for the White House, man. It's been a disaster on the
lots of court
Listen,
appearances.
Mark, the economy was looking great under Donald Trump. And you know what? That's a Barack Obama economy that he was working with. You see, these guys, they forget things quite quickly. You know, they forget things quickly. Now,
so
Joe Biden, you know, what he started with was a Donald Trump economy. You see what we was. We had inflation. We had all these things. Now we're starting to come back. We're looking good. The market is actually repairing itself. You know, it went through that phase, you know, and we're looking good again. But Mark, I want also, because Shalon did hit the hammer on quite a few nails there when I come on the program there just now and was listening to her. Listen, these foreign powers would have walked into our country and removed a duly elected government. Shame on them. Shame on them. Mark, the PPP did not. They weren't even close with the 2020 elections. They were not even close. How you know they were not close? Local government elections prove that. The recent local government elections we just had prove that. And then number two, the PPP were not ready, Mark, to govern, because they never expected the rigging to actually work. But they lucked out and it worked. And look what the Guyanese people are facing. Listen, Mark, like I said before, and I'll keep saying it, time is up for the PPP. It's time up, guys. You had your time. You failed miserably. You failed your people. You failed the Guyanese people. You never had their concerns at heart. You guys are just strictly sitting there and doing business transactions and lying in your pocket, while Guyanese continue to struggle and live in poverty. Your time is up. Mark, over to you.
All right, thank you so much, Mr. Caesar, Ms. Washington. We'll move away from the possibility of a Trump indictment, and we will talk about the $5 million to family members of these 20 young persons who died in that tragic dorm fire, something that could have been prevented, but because of the corrupt PPP regime, they didn't do what was necessary. And Priya Manik Chan should be hanging herself in shame, her head in shame, albeit They just don't have any shame. What is your take, Miss Washington, on that $5 million for those who died? $5 million will go towards their relatives. And for those who were injured, $3 million for those who were injured. Your take on this latest development, Miss Washington?
Um, you know, I'm trying to do the math with the $5 million here, because that essentially amounts about 25,000 US per person. I do not think that amount is fair. Those were young children. So 25,000 US, those people are going to take that money and it's going to be done very shortly, because chances are most of the families here who suffered because their child was lost their life in that fire, most likely working class people. And you take 25 million and compensate them for the life. That's what the Guyana government has valued, that those lives, one life was worth about 25,000 US. And that's what they're compensating. I think that is disgraceful, first of all, to just come up with a number. I don't know how they value the life, because first of all, in countries like developed countries like here in the United States, if somebody suffered any type of loss as a result of tragic injury in a fire, or some really serious something happened like as 9/11, the first thing that the government do or shouldn't do is just come up with a number and make an offer and said, here, we're going to give you $25,000. The first thing should have done, the parents usually file a claim. It goes through a process. I don't know if these people filed any claim, they make any demand, but what usually happens is the victim's family usually consult an attorney, and we have something called what is it called, the jury verdict. The jury verdict is something that most attorneys over here, when it comes to personal injuries, you will take a look at it and see what the history was in terms of what the value of a life in a situation like this would have been worth. And that's how you make a decision. I do not know how the government of Guyana, first of all, came up with a number of $25,000. And this is what they say here. This is what we value the life of this child to be worth. 5 million Guyana dollars. I don't think it's fair. And if those families accepted that, I think it's crazy, because maybe they could have gotten something higher if they had gone through the proper process of making a proper determination of what the value of one of those lives would have been worth. And that's done based on a number of factors. First of all, life expectancy, what the person intended to do, like if they intended to go to the university, if they intended to become an engineer, a doctor, a scientist, something of great value to the family. And there's numerous factors that are taken into consideration. Then you make a determination of how to value the life of those people. But you don't just throw a number and say, hey, this is what we thought that child was valued to you. First of all, the other thing is, if one family only had one child and that one child perished in that fire, obviously the value to that family is greater than the value of a family who had 10 children and one of the 10 children died. Not that I'm saying the life is more valuable, but I'm saying the value of that one child to that family, because they had only one child, would be a greater loss to them than a family who has like 10 children. So I think this is atrocious. I think the way the government of Guyana operates, it reflects them. It's reflective of who they are. It's reflective of the way they think about people and the worth of people in Guyana, to just throw 25,000 US at these people and say, here, take this.
I know that's certainly an embarrassment. Member of Parliament Roysdale Ford, as senior counsel, also alluded to that. It's a major embarrassment. And there are some folks who might, and I have seen some comments from folks who are like, oh, it's better than nothing. Typical Guyanese, reference, oh, it's better than nothing. And it's better than, it's trash. It's trash. This is an insult to the family. I agree with you, Ms. Washington, attorney at law. Let's get to our accountant, Mr. Wayne Caesar. Wayne, your take on that meager amount. 5 million for those who lost their lives. It goes towards their relatives. And 3 million for those who were injured.
Yeah. So, Mark, I just want to touch on what you just said. People, they need to get out of that type of thought process of something is better, than nothing. we need to really, really move away from such thinking, from such thoughts. We put ourselves at a lower standard when we think that way. People think that they can throw anything at us. But, going back to the families, and Shalon made some great points there. I don't know if those families have legal counsel in place, because those points that Shalon made there is quite interesting. And I don't know if the families are educated, to what she would have just said. So maybe, Mark, a few of those attorneys in Guyana need to, reach out to those families and, pick up a pro bono. Here's an opportunity to do a little pro bono, something here for the people, because everybody, Mark, everybody always say, oh, we do this. And I'm talking about in the legal fraternity. Oh, yeah, we're doing this, we're doing that. Well, where's the pro bono work? Here's an opportunity to pick up some work, and help these people. It would be of great help to them. And Shalom brought up a great point. If a parent has one child and would have lose that one child, a family, husband and wife had that one child and would have lost that one child, they are left with nothing. Absolutely nothing. So listen, Mark, based on the revenue that's passing through Guyana, $5 million per, a family, and as Shalon said, 25,000 US, which she's correct 100%. That's what it equates to. That's a drop in the pan. It's not fair. Again, we are talking about, for the most part, indigenous families, Mark. And, all across Guyana, we got to start holding our indigenous brothers and sisters to higher standards. I think sometimes we treat them like, they're not, included.
The PPP, the PPP. That is what.
Yes.
Difference under the coalition. The PPP treats them like they're nothing.
Like if they don't exist. For example, the girls at the dorm was bathing out in the open. Well, if you got young women bathing out in the open, what do you expect is going to happen? They're going to be preyed upon because, like Shalom would have said many times, there's a lot of pedophiles out there. So therefore, you have to provide, proper places for young women to be able to take their baths and do these type of things. But the PPP is lawless, man. All right, the PPP is lawless. Like I have said before, Mark, we need to have a task force go into these communities and see what's going on, because I think a lot of little girls is going through a lot.
Lots of them.
We need to be able to, capture that, and we need to stop that. But as far as the family goes, with this $5 million thing, I think it's shameful. The government should be ashamed of themselves. And like I would have said before, Nigel Darmla was offering $10 million to that young lady with a little hush thing that he had going on there. And all they could offer to these families that would have lose children is $5 million. How fair is that?
49 minutes after 9 o'clock, the little hush, he allegedly give them that little hush, allegedly. We have a question here, and I'm sure that Miss Washington would be able to answer it. Coming from Desiree Simons, there is a formula for calculating the life and time value, which is what you spoke about moments ago. The question is, though, can the amounts offered as final be challenged?
You see, the problem is we're not aware of what type of documents the PPP ensured that the victim's family signed prior to taking that money. And if they signed a document that says that after they accept that payment is going to be full and final and they will not be able to challenge it at any time in a court of law, then it's final. So we are not privy to how this settlement was exactly issued. So I cannot speak as to whether or not it could be challenged. What I would say, though, is if there are families who haven't accepted that settlement, they should know that they could go after Priya Manachan individually, because what they really should have done is sue her in her capacity as the Minister of Education, sue the government of Guyana, and sue her individually. Mark said it on this show. She sold a house for $1 million US. yes, she could give some of that money to those families because of her negligent conduct. Those children died. Because first of all, I don't think Priya Manichan did any report on the schools. She never did any inspections on any of the schools. She never sent out officers. Neither have she ever visited some of those schools, I believe, to see the conditions under which those children were attending an institution where they should have been learning. I think it was very, very gross negligence on her part that these children were locked in a building with no escape plan. I don't think she ever developed any plan in terms of safety, fire regulations in any of the school. I don't think she even had a safety officer under her who was ensuring that these schools were properly secured, and there was ways that these children would have been able to escape in the event an emergency occurred. The mere fact that the building that the children were sleeping in was grilled up all over with no means of escape, and the blocks, they were tightly locked in with no way in, nowhere out, except you had to open the locks on the door. Priya Manichan is grossly negligent, and that's what the families need to understand. And because of her gross negligence, I don't know how she sleeps at night, because after that, she should have just really resigned from that position because she's not fit. Because that is the sort of thing that happened under her administration. She is the Minister of Education. She's responsible for the schools. She's responsible to ensure that the schools are safe and there's certain types of conditions are conducive to learning, are put in place for the children. And if she's not doing her job, if she's just there for a paycheck and for the clout and for the recognition and for the popularity, she needs to step right down right now and have somebody who's more competent step into that role. So the people should sue her, file a lawsuit. It could have been a class action. More than several plaintiffs should have joined in the one action and sued her and sue the government of Guyana. Sue her department, sue her individually and in her personal capacity. She is directly responsible for the death of those children. And they should have never accepted 25,000, because you know what? If you had sued, you'd gone to court, those families probably would have been able to get enough money to take care of them for the rest of their lives. Because a lot of them, I don't know how many children they had, but those children who are lost, we know in Guyana, it's a tradition. Children takes care of their parents. And now they have lost that opportunity because of Priya Manichan's gross negligence.
Well said. Our gross negligence indeed. 53 minutes after 9 o'clock, Mr. Washington. Sorry, Miss Washington. I'm sorry about that. Mr. Caesar, we heard Irfan Ali, came and he basically, he talks right off the top of his head, emptiness, nothing really much. But they spoke about a commission of inquiry weeks now. Then we heard of the announcement that retired Brigadier General Joe Singh will be heading that so-called farce of a commission of inquiry. Yet nothing to this date. Your take, sir.
Yeah, and Mark, what's concerning here is that the offer was made to these families before the COI was held. I think that the COI should have been held before you offer compensation to the families. And also, when we talk of, and Shalon is right with this, when we talk of a class action lawsuit, and I'm not sure whether the family would have received these monies as yet or not. Okay, a class action lawsuit, would hold a lot. There's enough right now, more than enough. Why? First of all, we had $94.4 billion that was allocated to education. So that money should have been applied, to this dorm, the school as a whole. We should have had more people employed there, to take care of the children. You had one woman there and the children are grilled up, like Mr. Beresford would have commented and said, like if they were in jail, So listen, the PPP is fully responsible for what would have happened to those children, Mark. I know that $5 million is not nearly enough. They can do way better than that. And for those injured children, they should be getting, $5 to $7 million. Because listen, their parents send them out to school. They're supposed to be returned to their parents the same way they were sent. That didn't happen. And Mark, you know what? And Shalon talk of gross negligence, and I agree with her on that. Why? Because schools are now out, and you're not seeing engineers and inspectors going around and inspecting the schools. After this tragedy, we should inspect every school across Guyana and establish a safety code. But what? The schools are out and they're not doing anything. Priya Manichan is sitting down looking around. Listen, she's the worst Minister of Education Guyana ever had. All she does is dance and prance and does absolutely nothing. Priya Manichan, shame on you. Shame. You can come on the show and comment if you like. I'm here tonight. You will be responded to.
Shame indeed. Wayne Caesar is here tonight. Come
Yes,
on,
sir.
Come on, Miss what's her name? Priya Manichan. Come on. Come on. Wayne is waiting for you. All of the people in the comment section, they're waiting on you to come. Come on. But Miss Washington, let's touch on this here now. According to what we're seeing here in this Gordon Mosley piece, the debris from the Madja school dorm fire. Look what they're doing with it. The bones and whatever it is burnt up. They're putting it now to repair roads. They haven't denied it thus far, because these vagabonds in office are a bunch of liars. But what is your take on the disrespect based on what we're reading here? What is your take?
Very insensitive, Mark. It shows that they have no regards for the feelings of those victims. Because obviously, if you take debris from a building that was burnt and it had the remains of victim, it would hold some sort of sentiments to the families of those victims. And to just take it and callously use it to fill potholes, are you even considering how the victims would feel every single time they pass those potholes? It's just the government, again, is very insensitive. They have no regards for these people. And that of trying to compensate them is just a front to cover up their callous, negligent act, because they're showing the people of Guyana we really do not care. Because look what we're doing. We're taking the debris from the burnt building with the remains of the victims, the ashes from the victims that the families were not able to recover. And we're taking it and we're going to cover the potholes rather than taking those remains and just bury it underground. Just because you understand when a person has lost a family member, how sensitive that issue is. And you wouldn't want to upset them by taking the remains and use it to cover a pothole. That's very disrespectful. And this is why the indigenous people need to take note of what is happening and how they're being treated by the government of Ghana. Very disrespectful, Mark, and very insensitive.
Very disrespectful and insensitive. Mr. Caesar, please.
Yeah. To the PPPC, you guys are dense. You guys could have taken this and you could have digged down a deep hole. You could have buried this all down there, and you could have done a monument, at the top, for these 20 lives that was lost. That's what you could have done. But you guys are so lawless. You're so callous. You have no respect. You guys did not treat the deceased here with any type of dignity whatsoever. And it just shows you the type of respect that you guys have for people, especially the indigenous people. And to those indigenous leaders, those Tushaus, you guys need to, come forth, man, and speak out about things like this. And Mark, when I say the Tushaus and leaders, I'm not talking about Lennox Schumann. I'm not talking about that crook. I just want to make that clear. These people got to start being called out. I'm not holding back on any of these people. Lennox Schumann, you are a shame. You're a disgrace to the indigenous people. You are a total disgrace. Now, Mark, every time, the kids or the parents would traverse this street, and your car, you feel like if you're running over your child or a child, if you was able to recover your child, a child. And some of the remains that was recovered wasn't all there either. So we know, that, there's DNA in this stuff that's placed down on the, on the road here. That's ridiculous, man. It's shameful. I'm surprised that none of the ambassadors or nobody stepped out here to say anything or, to stop this government. This is horrible. We are an oil producing nation. You telling me that we couldn't do that road? We had to take the gravel from that building, that those children would have experienced such a horrific death mark and use it to cover potholes, man.
Shame.
Shame on the government of Guyana. You
Indeed.
guys should be ashamed of yourself. You're a disgrace to our people. Over to you, Mark.
Thank you. It's 10 o'clock in Guyana, 10 o'clock in Eastern Standard Time, different time wherever time zone you are in. If it's morning, good morning to all of you. We are not going just yet. Yesterday, the three martyrs of Linden, they were murdered under the PPP regime by agents of the PPPC. Agents of the PPPC, they were murdered by members of the Guyana Police Force. The commander then was Clifton Hicken. Hicken is now the acting commissioner of police. He is the acting commissioner of police, and we see him standing there with who. Miss Washington, these folks, the three martyrs of Linden, they were just offered a meager amount. I think those who were injured were offered just a couple of $100,000. The family members of those who were killed by the PPP, I think they were offered about $3 million. We're seeing a $2 million difference now. But it wasn't until the coalition got into office that sum was actually increased. It was increased. Thankfully, it was increased under the coalition to about a total of about $77 million between the three families, the martyrs. Reflection on the three martyrs. You're a Lindener yourself.
Absolutely, Mark. I am a Lindener, and I think what happened to these three persons, it is very sad and it's unfortunate, and it paints a picture of exactly the type of regime Guyanese people are forced to live under. They live in a country where it's reflective of a dictatorship nation. It's reflective of a nation with a government who cares nothing about the people. Those martyrs were marching along with other Lindeners peacefully, protesting the rate hike in Guyana, in Linden more in particular. And Mark, I'm being from Linden. The electricity in Linden has always been very, very low because it's affordable in Linden. The plant is right there. They produce it at a very cheap rate. So we know that it could continue to be supplied to the residents there at a very low rate, given the fact that Linden is very underdeveloped by and large, and the economy still struggles, even though there's the bauxite company there and certain other small businesses. And I think what happened here it was very unfair, the way they were treated, the way they were murdered. They were gunned down like animals in the street, peacefully protesting for a very good and important cause. And I think when Guyanese people wake up and understand that you have a right to protest any action you see the government took against your community that you do not agree with, you have a right to go out and peacefully protest, and you have a right to be safe. The job of the police is not to execute you, but is to protect the people of Guyana. And I think this is very, very, it's violent, and the government preaches violence and they enforce violence against the mass rather than protecting the mass and ensuring that the people are protected. And what happened to those three individuals in Linden, it's very sad and it's unfortunate, and it is a direct reflect of the government that the people of Guyana are living under. Those people were wrongfully murdered. And the other issue is the families weren't even properly compensated. I've seen in the news the mother of one of the victims, she is now living under extreme poverty conditions, which depicts grave poverty, because what they're saying is that the victim was the breadwinner for the home. And this is the thing, that when people are murdered under these conditions in Guyana, they need to consult an attorney, and those attorneys need to go and seek compensation for these victims, which would adequately provide for their entire lifetime, because that type of loss is losing a family member who's a breadwinner. It's horrific. It really changes your life for the worse. And the government should be held responsible every single time they murder a victim, an innocent person. Anytime they do such thing, extrajudicial killing, they should be held responsible for it.
Well said, Miss Washington. Mr. Caesar, your take on of course, yesterday was the Remembrance Day of those three martyrs who were murdered by the PPPC. And the PPPC has a history of murdering people whenever they're in office. It dates back even way before I was born. And I know you guys probably are a little older than I am. And way before I was born, in the 60s, they were killing people. They were slaughtering people. There were massacres under the PPP regime. We know of the Son Chapman. We know of what happened in other places. There was a bit tit for tat, but the PPP instigated a lot. And then for many folks who may not know, there was the Abrams family. There were 7 of them were wiped out under the PPP. We were told that it was a PPP butch job, or whatever it is you want to call it. And then there was the killing of Superintendent McLeod, I believe, a British guy, and the bullet was flushed down the toilet. All these manner of things. We know of the burning of cane fields, sabotaging the economy. And this is a PPP that claims that they're patriotic, when a lot of those acts were unpatriotic. They were criminal. They were terrorists. Back in those days, we still see them today as well, because when they were burning the cane fields and they were sabotaging the economy, Guyana was being sustained, and all Guyanese were being sustained by bauxite and bauxite workers. And we saw a lot of young men from the quarantine and other places went all the way to Linden to look for work. My dad was one of them. He walked, well, not really walked. The guy that walked to Linden with 2 different side slippers was Sam Hines, who walked all the way from Myconi to Linden, and Linden rescued him. And he turned out to be so ungrateful to Lindeners. He was laughing at those 3 persons who were murdered. He did nothing about that. He could have stopped the protest, but he decided to do nothing. Mr. Caesar, let's hear your take, sir.
Yeah, Mark, I was watching the program last night, and, it brought back a lot of memories. And of course, I am saddened, in remembering the death of these 3 brave men. Mark, when you go out and you're demonstrating your democratic right, which is to protest peacefully, the last thing one would expect is to be shot and killed. And like Shellan was saying, this is just a reflection of the PPP and what this stands for. There's no love ever meted out to their citizens. There's never no type of empowerment. It's always, about violence against their citizens. It's always negative, when this government is in place. And I agree. These 3 young men, they were brutally murdered. This is murder in bright daylight. And I say this, if it happens, Mark, that the coalition does get into power, let's try to go back a little bit and remember all the silly COIs that the PPP would have had. Those COIs was also rigged. It was, put in place that, favor would be given to them. Listen, so much money was spent there. I would say to the opposition, once they get back into power, to go ahead and to compensate these families once again. Make it right, because it wasn't made right the first time when it was done. And this is just, Mark, this is just the starting of a few initiatives that I have, and I'm going to throw another one out there. I feel like everyone who would have attended the University of Guyana and paid and is still living in Guyana should be fully refunded. Our constitution says that university should be free in Guyana.
All right. Thank you so much, Mr. Wayne Caesar. As we look at the time, Ms. Washington, we want to touch on maybe one or two things more before we go. And again, let us say good evening to the people of Linden. You should never forget, you guys should never forget your martyrs. Never forget these guys. They didn't deserve this. Shame on the PPP, the murderous PPP. Shame on them. And if some of them are watching right now from Freedom House and other places, shame on you, Jack Deere. Shame on Irfan Ali. Shame on all of them, including Sam Hines, who sits there in Washington. This guy, Sam Hines, is going to be a puppet all of his life. He's a puppet again. He is sitting there in Washington, D.C. as the Guyana installed ambassador to the U.S., and we're not seeing or hearing anything, but we see Jack Deere's nephew-in-law, Robert Prasad, meeting with people and in the U.S., and there's no Sam Hines. There's no Sam Hines at all. I don't know what's happening, but we want to touch on, and let's not forget that this story is still hot. We see the market is going down. We see people are now afraid to buy gold from Guyana. Allegations of money laundering, and so forth and so on. But what we're also seeing is a bunch of trench crappos and whatever else are just popping out of their holes and wherever they're popping out from, and they're making statements that doesn't make any sense at all. And sometimes we got to wonder whether these guys have a brain, whether they really are thinking. And let us go to one such individual, because hopefully we'll see a stop. This would come to an end where these pakus are just popping up. And as is in the case with this guy that's popping up now, claiming that he's defending these guys, of all persons, these guys, the Mohammed, give me a break. But let's play a little bit of this guy here, and then I'll get your take on it, Miss Washington, and then Mr. Caesar.
Good morning, my Guyanese brothers and sisters, and welcome to yet another episode of the State of Affairs. I'm here to speak to you today briefly on the Muhammad saga, the Muhammad Enterprise saga, that I find very disturbing, given when I investigate the facts and the persons who are bringing it. And I can't believe Guyanese are going after one of the tycoons in this manner, including those from the major fraternity. It is very disappointing, and you should be ashamed of yourselves. And the Guyanese, the man in the street, who continue to the foolish gossip, need to stop it. Let me give you a brief reminder. We need to remember, as we speak, and as I speak here today to you, the Guyanese.
I just want to pause for a moment, because this guy deserves. You guys know what? He deserves this award. Honest, Miss Washington, I don't know what is in the water that these guys are drinking. Mr. Caesar, I don't know what is wrong with this guy. Is he from He's not from Plaisance. If he's from Plaisance, y'all probably have to ask him to go in some other village. Let him go and live in Azruddin Mohammed's bottom house or somewhere. Where these guys pop out from? Miss Washington, please make sense. What is this guy really trying to say, and how does that make you feel?
I mean, first of all, I'm really confused as to what is the context of his defense against a
Wait a
pro.
minute. What do you mean context? You don't see what's written all over his face?
No,
A
what
bowl of
I'm
soup?
saying
He's the man singing for his soup. But continue, please.
is making a comment about something that involves an investigation in the United States, and then he's telling the guy and these people not to speak up. But you see, this guy he depicts exactly what is wrong in Guyana. When we see wrong, we cover it up. We don't speak up against it. We condone it. And to condone wrong is to be complicit with it. You're saying, I agree with the wrong. And that's exactly what this guy is doing. He's saying, although the Mohammeds, there's allegations that they're involved in money laundering, drug trafficking, human trafficking, all this type of wrongdoing. He's saying, I agree with whatever they're doing, whether it's a legal or illegal business, I agree with it. And then he's saying Guyanese need to stop speaking up against wrongful, illegal conduct. And he depicts exactly what the PPP does. I think he's been so long living under a corrupt government that condones wrongful government and speaks out against wrongful and speak for they agree with wrongful conduct, that he's doing the same thing here. He is agreeing with anything wrongful that the Mohammeds are doing, and he's telling people, he's encouraging Guyanese people to leave the Mohammeds alone, allow them to continue any conduct that may be unlawful, that the US government is investigating. And then he's turning against the US and saying and speaking things about the US. But the fact of the matter is, the CIA, not even the CIA, the FBI that we were told, and the DEA, whatever type of investigation is being probed into the Mohammed's business transactions, they have a right, because if they are sending anything illegal in the United States, the FBI, the United States has a right to protect its border against criminal activities. And any person who is attempting to conduct any criminal business, sending it transshipment, border, cross border, the US has a right to investigate those persons. And for you to sit as a clown and to condone something that there's an active investigation going on about, I don't know if he knows the Mohammeds, but if you know them, maybe you should go have a conversation with them and ask them, are you doing illegal things? Are you getting engaged? Are you engaging in drug trafficking? Are you engaging in money laundering? Could you show me your books? Could you show me how your transactions are done? Could you give me records so I can see and verify that the probe that the US is doing is an unlawful act, or they're just harassing you? Maybe he should do that rather than just coming out and tell the public something that he has no business, he has no saying in. He should just sit there and be quiet. I don't even know who is he, because his words is of no value. It has no probative value to it, because at the end of the day, if the Mohammeds are engaging in illegality, it needs to be investigated, not just for the people of Guyana, not just for the United States purposes, but also for the people of Guyana. They have a right to know if people are taking their wealth and laundering it illegally, because they're entitled to taxes from every single gold transaction, and they're entitled to keep their country clean and safe from drugs and illegal activities.
Well said, you. And we're just closing off with a little humor, because what he says there doesn't have any weight. It's just mockery, and he should have these sort of things and nothing to laugh about. Just mockery. He made a complete fool of himself. Maybe that's what he is. But for him to say that he has done his investigation, what investigations can you? What position are you in to do any such investigations? Come on, Odo. Just sit down and collect your little soup, enjoy it, and call you soup. But you did say, Miss Washington, that you don't know who he is, and a lot of people don't know who he is. He happens to be the son of Major Mackerel. I'm not sure if you know who Major Mackerel is, but a lot of our folks in the audience know who Major Mackerel is. Mr. Caesar, do you know Major Mackerel?
No.
Yeah, he is the son of Major Mackerel. A lot of folks in the audience should know Major Mackerel. Francine Cruz is saying poverty is all over him. Poverty is all over him, all between his teeth and all over. But Mr. Caesar, talk a little bit about Major Mackerel's son and what Major Mackerel's son just did there, for the heck of it.
Well, what I want to first make clear is that we are speaking here about Guyana and we're not speaking about Saudi Arabia. So we don't need a crown prince in Guyana. Okay? The people in Guyana have never voted to have a crown prince. We don't want a crown prince. So, Mr. Udubes, wherever you're going with this, I think you need to retract this statement. It's ridiculous in nature. When we speak of tycoons, okay, we have to speak of legitimate tycoons. I would have spoken before that I'm 100% sure that the gold that's being produced in Guyana is not hitting the Guyana Gold Board the way it should. I am not even sure that 50% of the gold that's produced or extracted in Guyana is hitting the gold board. And that's a shame, because I would have spoken and said that we need to have a gold reserve, we need to take our gold, and we need to back our dollar. But you use the word tycoons, and there are two tycoons when it comes to extracting gold and precious minerals in Guyana, and they would have known themselves, the Mohammeds and I think the Jagmahans, right? These people need to be, audited, and they need to be kept in line, and whatever they extract need to hit the gold board. It needs to be properly taxed. The gold and diamonds need to be properly marked and labeled and all these things before they're extracted. But you see, the issue here again goes back to government, because it's government that regulates these type of things. And if you have a lawless government, you understand me, everybody's going to play the underhand game. So this is exactly what would have happened here. But to come along and say that the Guyanese people need to stop, they need to be quiet. Why? Look, we're not just talking about gold here. What happened with the paper shorts murder? Don't he have a family? Don't they need some kind of closure? Come on, that too is being covered up. Okay, the word is out. Who would have allegedly ordered that man's execution? The word is out there. It's in the street. Nothing stays off the street in Guyana. So, Udubes, you need to retract those statements. The last thing in Guyana that we want is leaders that are alleged murderers, right? We don't want these type of things in Guyana. We need to clean up our country, sir. I don't know where you're going with this, but I definitely don't approve of it. And I know most Guyanese don't approve of it either. Over to you, Mark.
All right. Yep. Thank you so much. Looking at the time there, a lot of people don't know who that guy is, and maybe a lot of people don't know who Major Mackerel is either. I could tell the age of some of you guys if you don't know who Major Mackerel is. And as I said, that is Major Mackerel's son. We're closing the program off, and I just have one other quick concern. We are talking to all of the people, including all of those people in the ghettos in Guyana. Guyana, basically, those who are in the ghettos, some of them are covering up the ghettos with the little lights on the boulevard and all these different things. But reality is that Guyana has lots and lots of ghettos, and people need jobs, people need proper food, people need proper salaries, and all these sort of things. Well, let me just for the sake of folks to see and know who Major Mackerel is and why I say that Udu is Major Mackerel's son.
Major Mackerel. How you say, father?
Pull it up there, pull it up there. Well, there's a lot. Hold it, no selector. A long time we're there, and we are watching you, them a work, and we love it. But a big people time, Zane, Ranking Joe, Ranking Trevor, Junior Demos. Tony Screw, hold it. You find a rhythm for Ranking Joe a while ago. I want you find one for me. Find one for me. Oh, yeah. Run the chart. Zane. No! Remember Dirty Bongo, remember Dirty Bongo. Julio!
Our operator didn't give us the good one, but there's a good song, like Father, like Son. Some people are saying Major Mackerel sang a song that pretty looks done, and them not get none. Anyways, we're ending off our show this evening. And thank you for that smile, Miss Washington. At least you do have a sense of humor. Our accountant is all into the figures, right? Let's see here now. I want to play this here because we have a lot of ghettos and then we have a lot of idiotic individuals in Guyana. Lots and lots of idiotic folks in Guyana. And what is your take on speaking of idiotic individuals?
Breaking news, guys. The donkey speaks. Y'all listen, come quick. Y'all listen to the donkey.
Continue to listen like for Borough and Mark Bench Cap and every day they lie. Every day they attack lie. And then you listen to them back the next day. How you could be a success, man? How you could get there? There's nothing. You come do a whole program for represent again. We ain't got no ghettos in Guyana, the country developing. Look at the boulevard.
That was a special edition of The Donkey Speaks.
And for that, he got to get the award before we get on to your closing remarks. We don't pay that individual much mind. Doesn't make sense at all, period. But he gets an award tonight. So y'all could tell him, some of y'all who watch his Doty show, tell him he got an award tonight from his brother. Really do mean the donkey, his brother. Miss Washington, your closing remarks, please, ma'am.
Thank you again, Mark, for having me on this show. It's been my pleasure, and it will always be to be here to speak with the Guyanese people and whoever else is watching from around the globe. Thank you guys so much for joining us. Thank you guys for sharing the link, for your comments. I just want you guys to know that I do read a lot of the comments. I might not say anything, but I do appreciate some of the comments. I do read them. And again, guys, thank you so much for all of the support. I completely love you guys. I truly do. I appreciate you guys for all of the love and the support. And like I've said many times over, I've had people call and they said their family from Guyana who watches this show sent my phone number to them and asked them to call me for legal advice or to retain my office to represent them in some sort of legal issue. And that's why I want to say I am so grateful to all of you people. I'm grateful. I'm truly grateful. And I want to say thank you from the bottom of my heart. Thank you. Thank you guys so much for all of your support, all of the love. I love you guys. And I will continue to speak up against wrongful conduct on the part of the PPP, wrongdoing on the part of the PPP, illegal conduct, fraudulent conduct, any conduct that is distasteful and paints Guyana in a bad light. I will continue to speak up against it until someday, I believe, someday soon, Guyana will be liberated and we will have a new leadership in Guyana that will lead Guyana in the right directions. Thank you guys, and good night, Mark. Good night, Wayne. Thank you, Mark, for having me.
Thank you so much, Miss Washington. And I do ask for your forgiveness that I oftentimes ask you for 10 minutes. And it's almost 10:30 now. Have a good night, ma'am.
Good night.
Mr. Caesar, your closing remarks, sir.
Yeah, well, Mark, I just want to thank you tonight for having me on the program here. And to all our listeners and viewers, I hope, we had a good, solid, edifying discourse here tonight. Let's continue to stand shoulder to shoulder here. Every day that goes by is a day closer to, once again, freedom for our people, liberation of our country. Let's continue to stay focused. Let's be our brothers and sisters keepers. And, Mark, I just want to touch quick on our back to school drive. Things are coming along beautifully. We have quite a bit of donors. We're looking to close off, sometime early next week and be ready, to ship off to Guyana. But things are looking pretty solid there. I encourage people to continue to donate. We are very, very authentic. Everything that you give goes straight to Guyana, straight to the people. We have free shipping. We don't pay for these things. We have people who are helping us all through the track. So, you guys do not hesitate. For those who have donated, I just want to say many thanks to you guys. Let's continue to push. We cannot wait for the government, to give anything to our children. We have to empower our children. We're going to do the best that we can to put them in a position to be successful in school by giving them a backpack with some books and other necessities that they need, in class. A lot of times, kids, Mark, and when I was in Guyana, I see this, the kids are walking with their books in their hands. And, when the rain fall, the book is wet. Of course, you write in pencil, that the work, you may not be the work may not be legible after the book would have been wet and dry and all this stuff. So, I'm happy, that we're able to do this for our students in Guyana. And again, thanks everyone for your contributions. Mark, over to you.
All right. Yep. 31 minutes after 10 o'clock. Thank you so much. And indeed, I echo everything. Thank you so much. We will ensure that those who are in need will get that opportunity. At least it's our part. And those who have played a role, thank you all so much. Some of you are in the audience, yourselves. And we will continue to ensure that we keep you abreast as to what's happening. With that said, thank you again, Mr. Wayne Caesar. We appreciate your time here, sir. Even from your busy schedule, you take it to be here with us. Please give my regards to your mom and your family as well, and also your friend Gavin.
Gavin, yes.
Gavin.
Yes.
Thank you so much, Wayne. Appreciate it.
Thank you, Mark. Good night, everyone.
We gotta when we're in Guyana, we gotta have a beer in the ghetto, man. We gotta have a beer in the ghetto.
Yeah. Yeah, and thank you.
We don't worry with individuals who get away from the psychiatric ward. But
thank you for encouraging and restraining me from addressing that individual.
Thank you so much. But we've got to go.
All
Appreciate
right.
it, Wayne.
See you guys.
God bless. Yep. And we don't want to spend much time with goats and donkeys, and you know who they are. They oftentimes bray in Guyana. There are some people who feel that they can just turn their cameras on Facebook, and that is their happiness. Well, if that is their happiness, some of them it's like a comic show, and we know who those comics are. Those so-called political commentators, a bunch of comics. That's who they are. All right, folks are asking about this particular song. Odu, if he's listening, we dedicate this to Odu. Odu didn't make much sense there at all. And like Francine Cruz said, poverty written all over his face. He is the son of Major Mackerel. This is Major Mackerel.
How you want mix with God people? Well, Major Mackerel mix, but me no mingle. We not get entangled with no farmer dirty bound.
All right, so it is Major Mackerel. Anyways, I've got to go. I'll see you guys back tomorrow, same place, same time, right here on 107.1 FM. God bless you guys. Sometimes we get a little humor at times, just smile at things. And the people who are popping out of their holes, pretending to be defending, God in heaven knows what they're defending. They're just singing for the little supper. And there's some of them on social media have been, they had a lot of voice, had a lot of things. It was all about them and Nasruddin, and everybody gone quiet now. Every one of them have gone are quiet now. So we could understand what's going on, but some of the little rats are popping out of their holes, and we see some of these rats. Some of the rats got big heads, and whatever it is, they're floating around. But as they say in Guyana, right, they got eat, and it's all about that. They got eat. My name is Mark Benshop. Talk to you guys later. God bless you. And hey, is the Marshal, are they still in Guyana? Hopefully we'll hear soon, right? God bless.
So this is attorney Shellen Washington, owner and founder of the Washington law firm located at 455 Utica Avenue in Brooklyn, New York. We're specialized in medical malpractice, personal injuries, matrimonial law, and landlord and tenant. If you're in need of legal representation, please give us a call today. The number to call is 718-877-3100. Consultation is free at no cost to you, so call us today to see if we can be of any assistance to your legal needs. Again, the phone number to call us is 718-877-3100.
Well, young man, if me ugly like you, I beg God ring out my face and put it for sun. Cause pretty looks done, and you not get none. The looks done and they no get none. But the looks done and they no get none. He looks done and they no get none. He looks done and they no get none. God them turn up, me sit down, me a walk, him a run. Him buck him big toes tumble down. When he look on the man, me a big gallop and run. The boy fear, but I took a one a Shaka Zulu song. He looks done and they no get none. He looks done and they no get none. True Shaka Zulu, him a Shaka Zulu. Shaka Zulu, you be a Shaka Zulu. You ugly like a horse, like a patu. Snake, kangaroo, you a battle in a pen and me a battle too. Buck off on me, me da go buck down you. Kick off on me, you go and kick down you. Box off on me, you go and box down you. True Shaka Zulu, you a Shaka Zulu. Shaka Zulu, you a Shaka Zulu.